are small shrines scattered about the Forbidden Lands that act as save points for your progress, but considering the amount of time it takes to defeat each Colossus, I don't think they're all that useful, at least not for our purposes. Using the ancient sword's light, we see that the next Colossus is located in a completely opposite direction from Valis. This is another thing that the game does incredibly well. It makes Dorman's Shrine an extremely effective nexus by placing it directly in the center of the game's world, with many different paths opening up to you from all directions. I just can't imagine Shadow of the Colossus with a linear map where every boss arena opens up to more of the world. I love the fact that you can just pick a direction and go if you wanted to, even if there were no fights waiting for you. As the ominous music begins to play, Wander begins his angled descent to the beach below. Interestingly, Shadow of the Colossus's camera will rotate and angle itself at some points to emphasize the scope or scale of an area. Luckily, it's never to a degree where it feels like your control is impeded. I'm going to need the trusty video game bow and arrow for this fight beneath the bridge. I think it's noteworthy enough to acknowledge the scale offered by just these two columns supporting the bridge that Wander used to enter the shrine at the beginning of the game. Our next Colossus is hiding behind the large door here, and we don't even have to knock. This is Quadratus. He's the second Colossus, and he is pissed off. While aggro is available for this fight, she isn't particularly helpful. Considering Wander's height in comparison to the bosses, his weak points show themselves pretty quickly in the form of the green bottoms of his limbs. Right here, I'm not just shooting him with arrows because I'm bored. When he turns his head, you'll see that his eyes are glowing a dull red instead of a bright blue. This means that he's enraged at Wander and is about to attack, or at least is getting into a position where attack would be possible. I'm not completely certain how much angering him actually speeds things up, but it certainly does feel like it helps. One shot is all it takes to trip Quadratus up. The particle effects that fill up the screen when his leg falls into the beach make me smile every time. If Shadow of the Colossus accomplishes any one thing with certainty, it's making the creatures feel as real as they possibly can, whether that's through their slow, lumbering animations or the effort that went into making sure that they interact with their environment as realistically as possible with the technological limitations of the time. I'm not 100% sure what happened there, but I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. The physics of his animation really wanted to help Wander get up on his back, I suppose. Introduced with this Colossus is the mechanic that there may be more than one weak point to uncover. Wander will have to find all of them if he wants to take the beast down. Fortunately, the second weak point is the last one for Quadratus, is how cool it is to be on top of Colossi like these. I mean that in the sense that once you're on his back, the environment around you almost becomes secondary. The Colossus is now the world that you have to traverse. I just think that's pretty cool. For some reason, his last utterance always felt like one of the more brutal in the game. It's short, but so pain-infused. A giant canopy soars to the heavens. The anger of the sleeping giant shatters the earth. I'm incredibly excited for this next Colossus. On my original playthrough, it was the first one that really made me stop for a second and admire its design and let me know that I was in for a pretty special experience. But I'm getting ahead of myself now. To get to the third Colossus, we have to head the same way we did to reach Quadratus, but keep pressing onward instead of going down the slope. At this point, we enter more of a grasslands area of the Forbidden Lands, which brings me to something that has been used as criticism for Shadow of the Colossus, just as much as praise: the world itself. There's no two ways about it. Most of the world is completely barren, with little in the way of exploration, or rather, not much in regards to rewarding you for that exploration. I can completely understand that some people might not approve of or even be bored by a game world like that, but in a shocking twist, I have to disagree. I pretty much am always pleased when a developer or team of developers is willing to lovingly craft a game world and not throw eye catches in at every random corner. For me, it's as though the world is given more room to breathe, and it makes discovering the rarer special structures, such as this one, that much more satisfying. islands jutting out of the water relate to a lot for me. The crumbled, spiraling platform is threatening as it leads to an obstructed destination, but also inviting as it's the only way forward. The underwater in this game terrified me to no end way back when, and even now it's still a bit unnerving. I think it's the silence and the visibility of such a wide, open space that makes me feel that way. As a special bonus, we get a fantastic view of the tops of the canyons here, and even a view of Dormant's shrine, where Wander began his journey. Say hello to Gaius, the third Colossus. He's quite the knight in old, decrepit armor, if I do say so myself. This is our second Colossus that uses a weapon, but it is by far the more intimidating. Valis may have wielded a giant club clutched in one of his hands, but in the case of Gaius, his weapon, a sword, is his hand, and something about the way he moves it about seems off. At the same time, he's a bit lanky, which gives him a surprising amount of speed and mobility. His anatomy is also very distinctly reminiscent of a human being, especially his head and face. As you'll see, I had a bit of trouble here in my first few attempts. The goal is to get Gaius to strike the only section of the stage that isn't dirt, which is the very center. I misjudged the distance he would have to be to accomplish this, however, so I had to move him away a tiny bit first. Ouch is all I can say. Whenever Wander takes a large hit to his health bar like that, the game forces him to stay grounded for quite some time. That was not me trying to play up the hit for dramatic effect. Once again, it's another design decision to give the Colossi a real feeling of power. to strike the center and break his armor. Once that mechanic is over and done with, we can climb on top of him in what may be one of the most badass ways in the entire game. Though it almost meant having to reset my progress of climbing, that wicked kind of cinematic roll backwards that Wander was forced to do almost made it worth it. Like Quadratus, Gaius has 2 weak spots. I believe you're intended to go to his head last, but I opted to go for it first just to make sure I would have enough standing room to replenish my stamina. Its AI was less than forgiving to me, as you can see. Sometimes the Colossi simply can't stop flailing about, and my continued failings of missing the vital spot on his head really didn't help matters. I apologize for dragging this fight out much longer than was necessary. I'm really glad that the game decided to throw me a bone there and let me grab onto Gaius' back instead of having to go through the shame of a slow fall all the way to the ground. Thank you, Shadow of the Colossus. Thankfully, I was able to finish off the weak point on his head without being flung off. His second sign is much more forgiving on your grip meter, and surviving his writhing animations. Little bit of a close call landing on his belt like that, but all's well that ends well. Wander's jump was a bit too generous in its height sometimes, but at least I didn't miss the sign a bunch like I did with his head. Love how the music holds back for a moment so that you can hear his grunt and the thud when he loses his footing at first. It dramatizes the moment very well. you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your morning, day, or night, and I hope to see you back next time.